let's get into the message today. And I'm so excited about this because I feel like it's right in my sweet spot of what I'm passionate about. And last week, Pastor Josh spoke on serving. And I watched the video yesterday, and the part that really stood out to me was he was speaking from Matthew 20, and he was talking about James and John were vying for power. Do you remember that? Who was going to sit at the Lord's right hand? And actually, their mom was the one who was kind of speaking up for her boys there. And Jesus kind of talked through that a little bit, but the key verse that he said, or the words that he said was, "But not so with you." Like, this is how other people act, but not so with you, because you are different. Because when you accepted Christ and he became real to you and you committed your life to him, things changed. There's things that other people do that you don't do, because not so with you. Because you are in a transformation process, that God is making himself alive in you. You're becoming more and more like Jesus. And some of the behaviors that maybe your friends had or you used to have aren't consistent with a life that's following after Christ. So he said, not so with you. And, you know, I love that because I think sometimes we don't give full disclosure. I know there's times that I've been guilty of this, that we talk to people about becoming Christians and we set up this picture like, it is just a journey with Jesus. It's a walk in the park. It's peace in the valley. And then you're like, wait a minute. When I accepted Christ, life wasn't all peaches and cream. It wasn't all roses. Can anybody else identify with that? Like, wait a minute. I thought, like, all my problems would be gone. Well, Jesus is with you through those problems. I'm not denying that at all. There's huge advantages of following Christ. Don't get me wrong. But I think if our mentality is, well, now I'm just moving right along and everything's going to be great. Well, the Bible clearly says that in this life you will have troubles. You will have problems. And if your expectation is that, wow, now I'm just on that straight shot to heaven. I'm never going to get mad anymore. There's not going to be any annoying people around me. You are up for a huge disappointment. And I know when I gave my life to Christ when I was 8 years old. In fact, it was in this room. I was sitting right about there. And you know what my motivation was? I'll be really honest with you. I was 8 years old, and I had a Bible. And the first page of the Bible, it says your name, and then it says what day you accepted Christ. Well, I didn't have a date to put in there. So I literally, on a Sunday night, nobody led me to Christ, and I was like, Jesus, I ask you into my heart today. And then I wrote down December 8th, 1972. It was like amazing that was my way that I came to Christ, all motivated by wanting to write a date in my Bible. But my real commitment came when I was 25 years old. And the verse that Jesus gave to me was in Matthew 10:39, and it says, if you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake, you will gain it. Those things that we strive for, the stuff in life, if we're after that and that's our motivation, you know, you're going to lose it, because when eternity comes, none of that stuff matters. All the stuff that we think matters in this world, whether it be, you know, just money or stuff or even some relationships and things like that, that it's like, no, if you cling to that, you're going to lose it. But if you cling to the stuff that's eternal, if you lose your life for my sake, then you're going to gain real life. And I know in my own life, as a result of that, it's changed my perspective on pretty much everything. That my filter is an eternal perspective. And so as a result of that, there are some things and goals that I really thought were important in my young 20s that haven't happened yet, or may not happen at all. But it's because maybe the Lord's saying, I have something better for you that's going to give you more contentment, more satisfaction in life. Maybe I'm not as secure financially as I thought I might be. Many of you have heard my story of I'm an occupational therapist, and when God totally said, I want you fully committed, that was something I kind of pushed off to the side so that I could do exactly what he called me to do. But as a result of that, probably missed out on some things that were goals when I was younger. But my life is so much better than it would have been. And I love the analogy that we have of being part of the family of God. Throughout the Bible it talks about that when you accept Christ, you become adopted. You're an adopted son and you're an adopted daughter. So in the context of being part of the family that God has for us, we all know that if you're in families and everybody's not pulling their weight, doesn't it cause some resentment in the families, especially if you have children? You probably really see this, that if you would say to one, hey, I need you to go out and mow the lawn, and you tell the other one, hey, feel free to lay on the couch all day. Don't you think the one that's mowing the lawn would get pretty upset about that? That would not go over well in my house at all, because there would be this resentment that would come up through that. But it's also dysfunctional to think that a 3-year-old should be cooking the family meals, right? But a 13-year-old, hopefully you're starting to train them and at least to know how to make Kraft macaroni and cheese, right? And then let's hope that when they're 30, they fully know how to, make their own meals, and then hopefully serving others as well. And that's how it starts in the family, that we start as young children with limited responsibilities, and then we get more and more of that. And that's what being a Christ follower is all about. Because again, going back to that thing of, hey, you accept Christ and now, you just kind of keep doing what you want because you've already got that seal. That's not how God intended it. That's where I think that full disclosure comes in. That when you accepted Christ, you become part of a family where you have roles and responsibilities. And maybe not all at once because, you kind of take the milk and then you start to feed on the meat. And there's more expectations as you continue to grow in that. But the cool thing about all that is that God gives you every resource you need to do what he's calling you to do. Have you seen that in your own life? That sometimes you're like, I'm not sure I'm up for this challenge. And then, wow, God gives you the resource that you need for that. But then you run into sometimes this whole thing, and maybe you've seen it in your family. Well, I personally never thought I had the gift of washing dishes. All right? So because I don't have the gift of washing dishes, I don't believe that I should wash dishes. Now, in a family, what do you do when that happens? You teach your children how to wash dishes, right? Well, sometimes that can happen in the church is we can be like, well, I know I'm part of this amazing church and God's doing amazing things here, but I don't really have a gift to do such and such. And then that limits what happens because maybe I don't have the gift to wash dishes. Like my brother Randy, he has the gift. He has the gift of cleaning for sure. In fact, he doesn't even think I do anything at the house because he does so well in cleaning. He's shaking his head. He doesn't do anything. But sometimes you do things in a family out of need, right? It just needs to be done, so we're just going to, even if this isn't my thing, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But again, God's going to give you the resources that you need as well as what your family needs. And that's really where Pastor Josh is going with this series on serving, is the fact that we believe God has amazing things that he's doing now and he's going to continue to do through the family fellowship. And that we now are part of this mission of how we're going to fit in to what God is calling us to do. So looking at this whole topic of serving, immediately my mind went to Matthew. I think it's in 25, and it talks about the parable of the talents. And in the parable of the talents, if you're not aware of that, let me look, because some of you are looking at your Bibles. Now I'm a little insecure that I said the wrong thing. Parable of the talents, yes! Matthew 25, verse 14. But let me just give you a short recap of the parable of the talents. The master came to his servants, and he gave each of them differing talents. And this could be thought of, I've heard it mentioned as money. Otherwise, it truly is like the talents that you have, things that you can do. So he gave one guy 10, gave another guy 5, and then he gave the third one 1 talent. Well, then he said, I want you to go do something with that talent, and I'm going to come back and check on you. Well, the one that had the 10 talents, he multiplied his tenfold. And then the guy with the 5 talents multiplied his as well. But the guy with the 1 talent, he didn't do anything with it because he was kind of scared that he might lose it, that something bad might happen. And the master was very, very upset that he didn't do anything with that. So initially, when I read this, I saw something that I hadn't seen before. And this is what I thought about, that it almost looks unfair. Like, how come, like, the one guy got 10, but this other guy only got 1? And then I thought about the fact that that's reality, isn't it? Like, I don't sing on the worship team because that's not really a high talent of mine. But there's others that have that talent and are using it, and it's blessing other people. It happens with money too, doesn't it? Some people either, were born into the right family, or they have worked hard, they've gone to school, and they've been able to do well with their money, whereas others, it's just been a struggle for them. And it doesn't seem fair on the onset, but that's just how it works. I don't know why, or there's any rhyme or reason to that. But when it comes to the whole thing about time, talents, and treasures, which is where we're going to be these next 3 weeks, when it comes to time, that's the one thing that we all have the same amount of. We all have 52 weeks in a year. We all have 365 days in that year. We have 24 hours in a day. We have 1,440 minutes. We have 86,400 seconds per day. Now, there's going to be an end point to that, but as long as we're still alive and breathing, we all have the same amount of time. So the question really isn't, what have you been given? The question comes down to, what are you doing with what you have been given? And when we talk about time, specifically, what are you doing with the time that you've been given? How are you investing the time that you have? Well, as I was praying more about that, I felt strongly that the Lord said, it's not just about time, but it's also about attention. Time and attention. Because how many of you have been in a room with somebody and they're there in their body, but they're not there? Yeah? How many of you have been that person? I have. And so I set up my little distraction zone here. And you can tell, like, number 1 is the phone. That can be such a distraction. Can I tell you a little secret? When I grabbed it the first service, I hit the button, and I had some text messages, and it totally threw me because I wanted to read my text messages. I'm like, wow, great illustration. But our phone can be such a distraction to us that we can be in the room with somebody. In fact, I remember Randy said to me a couple months ago, he said, does your phone have to come to the table with us? And I was like, oh, you got me. You're right. And I'm like, I might miss a really important call. But I'm there, but I wasn't there. And there's something called the gift of presence that we have. And I don't think we totally realize what the gift of presence really is to another. So the phone can be a big one. Another one would be, I want this to represent our work. That, we love technology, but what technology has done is it's distracted us. That now we bring our work home with us, and we don't have a break from it. And think about the message that that's sending to the people around you. I pulled out a video game system, and, right away you might automatically think, oh, those young people always playing those video games. Well, at camp, I was really surprised by the number of kids that when they came up for prayer and ministry, what we heard a couple times was, I don't feel like I'm wanted by my parents, and they specifically said their dad, because he's playing video games all the time. And I thought, well, we shouldn't be surprised with that because we had a generation that played a lot of video games, and now they're 25-year-olds and becoming parents, and that's hard to stop that if that's what you've been doing all the time. So teenagers, if your parents kind of get on you about limiting that, I want you to think about yourself as a dad someday. That, are you going to be able to just stop that when you've got kids? Because it was something that we prayed for kids about. And then I of course, have to show off my beautiful painting. that we had a painting class in February. And so I'm using this as my example of our hobbies. Again, we can be in the same room with people and think that we're giving them time, but we're distracted even by things that are good, by the hobbies that we have. And the same thing, maybe you're a reader, and you think, well, reading's really good. How could she have a problem with that? Well, I don't have a problem with reading, but I know that there's been times that I've allowed a book to be more important than the people that I'm in the room with. So again, we're not talking about legalism here and setting up rules or anything like that, but we are talking about, I'm going to lay that down. We are talking about the gift of presence and being fully engaged in where you are. And think about it. What did Jesus give us when he came down from heaven? Jesus gave us the gift of presence. And think about what he gave up. He gave up total attention from the Father in heaven, his time and his attention to come to earth so that he could do life with us in an undistracted way. And that meant a lot more to me as I was thinking about and just grateful for what Jesus gave up. Because that must have been a sweet place for him. And yet he became a baby so he could enter our world and be one of us and be part of us. I just think that's so awesome to think about that concept, about the gift of time and presence modeled by Christ. And, okay, I know some of you at this point are like, okay, now she's going to start getting to that point where we're going to feel bad, like we should be doing more, we should be giving more of our time. Oh no, the guilt's going to, set in. Let me put you at ease. I'm not all about that at all. Because I think when we talk about giving of our time or giving of anything, you need to know the why behind it. There has to be a bigger reason for what we do. And because how many of you have been in a relationship where it's been out of obligation? You may not want to raise your hand on that one. But I know if I was in a relationship like that, it would just feel yucky to me. Like this person is with me because they feel sorry for me, like they feel obligated to spend time with me. And there's just something that's really off about that. But then, you think about with Christ, like if he felt obligated to come to earth to be with us, it would cheapen what he did for us. Don't you think so? Like that's kind of how my mind works. But I'm so grateful that it was his desire to spend time because he knew that we were on a mission. His mission was to come and save the world, to save the people so that they could be reconciled to Christ, so that we could be enjoying heaven and enjoying that presence someday in eternity. And he knew the only way to do it was to come down, be with us, and then get us to be on that mission with him. And that's part of how we need to look at it too, that, wow, we're on this mission. Like when we start talking about serving and time, treasures, and talent, it isn't that I have to do this. It isn't this obligation. It becomes a, wow, there's a bigger story happening here. I've been invited to be part of the greatest mission that there ever was. And how cool is that? So what I want to do today is I just want to look at Mark 10. And Mark 10 is a story where Jesus spent time with people. In fact, he loved to spend time with the little people, with children. So instead of reading it, we're going to be in Mark 10, 13 through 16. I have a short video that shows this story. And I have to give a little disclaimer. For those of you that were here last September, and I had done one of the first Wednesday teachings, some of the video and the points that I'm going to pull out are part of that. So if you're like, wait a minute, I heard that before, you're not losing it, all right? As I was praying, it's like, wow, this fits in so well. So it'd be a great review. So Mark 10, check it out.
T-shirts here, get your T-shirts.
Fish on a stick. Why wait for a miracle when you can eat a tasty fish right now? Get a fish on a stick while they last.
Can we get a fish on a stick, Mommy?
Maybe later, sweetie. First, let's find a good seat where we can see Jesus.
There he is, Mommy. There's Jesus. Come on, let's go meet him.
Wait, honey. Excuse me, pardon me.
is your daughter, ma'am?
Yeah, she belongs to me. I'm so sorry. She was so excited to see Jesus in person.
There he is, Mommy. I'm gonna go talk to him.
Code blue! I repeat, we have a code blue! There's a security breach in quadrant 3. Subject is heading northwest towards Morning Star. Subject is about 4 feet, 2 inches, wearing a blue dress with pink polka dots.
Her name is Cindy. She is harmless.
Proceed with caution. The subject may be armed and dangerous.
She's only 4 years old.
Jesus!
James, what are you doing?
It was code blue, Jesus, but I stopped the subject and everything is under control.
Hiya! Everyone stay calm. Jesus, I'm the one who spotted the violator first. James is only following my orders. You may continue teaching. I'll take care of the girl.
There'll be no need for your help, Peter. I'll make sure this girl does not disturb Jesus.
Drop the girl now, James. I'll handle this.
Both of you stop. Put Cindy down right now. And please be careful.
Mommy, Jesus knows my name.
Peter and James, we'll talk about this later. But right now, I want all the children to come to me. And nobody better stop them. Come here, Cindy.
Oh no! What do we do?
Jesus said not to stop them. This ought to be good.
Now this is what the kingdom of God is like. You all should become just like these children. Now, Cindy, tell me about your pet rabbit Buttons. You taught him any tricks yet?
You know about Buttons?
All right, here we go. So that's a modern day version of Mark 10. You kind of imagine it that way, right? But what I love about that passage is it gives some practical ways and really the motivations that Jesus had when he brought the children close to him. Now, we could apply this to children, we could apply it to youth, we could apply it to adults. It kind of crosses the age gaps there. But the first thing I want to point out is Jesus brought them close. Verse 13, it said, people were bringing little children to Jesus to have him touch them, but the disciples rebuked them. And if you notice in that, and I looked this up in different translations, and I even went back to the King James Version, that it didn't say, and doesn't say, parents brought their children to Jesus. Do you see that? That it says people brought children to Jesus. And I love that because sometimes we might think, well, you know, it's the parents' responsibility, which obviously they have the primary role in that, but it doesn't put the rest of us off the hook. That we're all responsible to help bring children close. And I know Hillary Clinton has been, said that she came up with this term, but it's actually an African proverb that says that it takes a village to raise a child. And it really does. And I would say that it takes a church to raise a child. You know, I've talked to parents that they love it that other adults can have influence and speak into the lives of their children. In fact, I have parents say to me, why is it you can say the same exact thing that I said, and they don't listen to me, but they'll listen to you? I said, I have no idea. But that's sometimes how it works. So it wasn't just the parents, it was the people that brought the children to Jesus. And then it said that he could touch them, to have him touch them. And touch is a modifying influence on the object being touched. I believe that when we bring people close to Jesus, the touch that he has on them is going to change the direction of their life. How many of us, the encounter that we had with Christ changed the direction of our life? But there was a human factor in that somebody had to play that role to help us in having that touch, and it had a change on our life. And I'm going to ask Jonathan to come up. And this is Jonathan Barnes, And I love this guy. He has been part of our Soulfire team for 3 years. And the Soulfire team is a discipleship team that we put together with students across the district. It was started in 2011, and we've had over 60 that have been a part of it. And so we train them and mentor them, and then they serve at our kids' camps. And Jonathan has done a tremendous job in that over these last couple years. And Jonathan, I want us to just share about one little boy that you definitely had a touch with. So why don't you give us a little picture of what he was like last year at kids' camp?
Alrighty, well, this little boy's name was Drew, and Drew did not want to be at camp at all. He wanted nothing to do with it. He was talking about how it was a waste of $200, and he was actually bribing some of the adult leaders, asking, how much would it cost for me to get into a better room? I don't want to stay in the cabin with all these kids. And he was just not happy about being there. And I remember the first encounter I had with him, we were walking, I was with another adult leader, and then he was in between us. And this was after memory verse games, and he did not like memory verse games at all. And as we were walking back, he was kicking everything, and he was screaming, and he was actually, the adult leader that was with us, Drew took a couple swings at him, not out of anger towards the adult leader, but just because Drew was angry and that's the only way he knew how to deal with it. Yeah.
It was definitely a challenge, as well as to the other students that were there. He was giving off this vibe. You ever been around people that they expect you to reject them, so they're going to give you a reason to reject them? And that's kind of what Drew was doing there. But Jonathan, God did something in you, and tell us just how the connection happened that you had with him.
So Tuesday night, Soulfire and me met before service just to kind of go over the plan, and by this point, everybody knew who Drew was, and nobody really wanted to engage with him just because he was angry and, he was a challenge. And so during the pre-service meeting, we were talking, and one of the leaders in our group said, okay, we need someone to focus on Drew tonight. We need someone to pray for Drew. And in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, somebody needs to pray for him, somebody needs to focus on him. And then all of a sudden I hear, oh, thanks for volunteering, Jonathan. And I look up and my hand was in the air, and I didn't even realize that I had volunteered. But so that night, I just spent the night praying for him and praying with him, and I felt this really heavy burden in my heart for him. And so the next morning, I was just sitting at breakfast, and I went and sat by him and a couple of his friends, and just by sitting down and talking with him, talking about his video games and just engaging in conversation with him, he was not the same child that was sitting across from me was not the same child that was screaming and arguing the day before. He looked the exact same way, but this time he had a smile on his face, but on the inside he was not the same child. And so that continued throughout the rest of the week. He had a smile on his face just because somebody was engaging with him, somebody was talking to him, somebody cared about him. And I feel like that was the first time he really felt that way.
Now, did you give him any money?
No.
Did you buy him candy at the candy store? You didn't promise him that you were going to send him a video game or anything. So you basically just got into his world and talked to him.
Yep. Got down on his level and just engaged with him.
Tell us now, a year later, Drew came back to camp. Tell us what it was like with him this year.
Well, I was not expecting Drew to come back. And so when I saw him this year, I dropped everything I was doing, and I ran towards him and gave him the biggest hug, and he looked at me and he gave me a big hug, and he just looked at me and he was all smiling, and we hit a little bump in the road during memory verse games again this year. He didn't want to participate, but this year, rather than kicking everything and screaming and punching, he just said, I'm not participating, and you're not going to get me to participate in this game. And, you know, at that point, there was nothing we could do about it, but he was a completely different person. Last year, after I felt that burden, started, you know, hanging out with him, sometime throughout the middle of the week, he came up to one of the Soulfire leaders and said, Angry Drew is gone. Mm-hmm. And it was so cool this year because Angry Drew was gone. Angry Drew did not come back this year, other than the little anger issues we had during the memory verse game, but even then it was nowhere near as bad as last year. And he was, during services, he was engaged, he was down at the front worshiping, you know, he was paying attention during the service, and yeah.
Wow.
Completely different kid. Wow.
And I really credit that to the time and attention that Jonathan put into him. Thanks, Jonathan. You know, this is funny. I was at a different camp the beginning of the week, so I came back midweek to our camp at Camp McPherson, and he said to me, are you the one in charge? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, if you don't have Jonathan come back next year, I'm going to get you fired. I said, we'll make sure. We'll do something to get Jonathan back. But I called their pastors of their church and talked to them this year, and they just said there was a remarkable turnaround in him. Comes from a terrible family situation, and the attention that he got that week really put his life on a different course, and he couldn't wait to come back. And so we're, in fact, going to find a way that Jonathan can go up to their church sometime and kind of surprise Drew on a Sunday. So I think he'll love that. So know that when you bring them close, you're able to have that touch that could change the direction of somebody's life. Number 2, Jesus defended the children. When it said in 13 that the disciples rebuked them, when Jesus saw this, he was indignant. He said to them, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. And in order to defend somebody, you need to know their story. You need to know what they're going through so you can be that advocate for them, that you can be that one that stands in the gap and maybe helps them through a difficult time. Like even in this room, I've spent parts of the last 3 weeks with who's here? Hannah and Summer and Noah and Jonathan and Erica, and I've had conversations with them. And now I know the things that maybe they're struggling with a little bit, that I could really defend them. Now, everyone else in the room, I haven't spent time with you, so I don't know kind of what's happening in your lives. It would be a lot more difficult for me to do that because we haven't spent that time together. And that word used, indignant, it's the only time that it's used in the New Testament. And it means, let me make sure I get this right, it means a deep emotional response of anger at the unfairness of somebody. That Jesus had this deep emotional response to the fact that the children were being pushed away from him. Wow, that we would be able to bring people close enough that we would know what they're going through, that we would be indignant when there's injustices happening. But again, the only way that happens is if you know their story, if you've spent time with them. And number 3 is Jesus gave the children value. Verse 15 said, I tell you the truth, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a child will never enter it. Jesus gave the children value. He put importance on them. He said, you're worth something. If others don't act the way you do, your openness to come to me, to receive my love, they're missing out. May the kingdom of heaven be like you. That's putting a lot of value and worth on who they are as people. So now I want to bring this back around as we head towards the close. Remember, I talked at the beginning about the real question is, what are you doing with what you've been given? We've all been given the same amount of time. What are we doing with it? Now, in that, I completely understand that we have different responsibilities in our lives. Obviously, family, for some of us, takes more time than others, depending on where your stage is in that. working, not working, community things that you're involved in, sleeping, eating, all those things. But when you really map that out, what are you doing with the time that can be invested into the kingdom? In fact, I like to think about it in this way. What will your kingdom investment portfolio look like? Because every month I get this portfolio report from some of the investments that we have for our retirement. And each month we're, putting money coming out of my check. And so I'm able to see some months it goes up if the market's doing well. Some months we lose a few dollars if it's not doing so well. But what I'm able to do is I'm able to look at it. And I'm able to say, oh, okay, that's doing well or that's not doing well. What if we did that with the investments that we're making in our time? If we'd say, hey, this that I'm putting a lot of time to, what's the return that we're getting on that? Or maybe I'm finding that this really is taking more time and I could be changing my investment this way. Look at it this way, all right? If you had a penny, okay, and I said to you, here's your option. I'm going to give you a penny or I'm going to give you $10,000. Which one would you take right off the bat? $10,000, right? Well, what if I then said to you, I'll give you a penny, but then I'm going to double it every day for 30 days. Makes it a little more challenging. How many of you would take the $10,000 still? Okay. How many you would maybe take the penny? Okay, let's up the ante. What if I said, I'll give you $1 million or the penny that I'm going to double every day? How many would take the million? I'm sweetening the pot. Well, some of you are like, I'm not falling for that. Because in reality, if I gave you a penny every day and we doubled it for a month, at day 20, you'd be around $5,000. And you'd probably be like, man, I should have took that $10,000 because that's looking like a real good deal because we've been at this now for 20 whole days and I'm still behind this other person that got the $10,000. What's going to happen on day 21? You're going to go over the $10,000 mark. And when you get to the end of the month, you're actually going to have over $5 million if you take that penny and you double it every day. So that $5 million is looking a little better than even the $10,000 or the million. But I think that's what happens sometime in our serving, in our time. Like we give it a few days or we give it a few weeks to something, and we're like, oh man, I've been at this now I've taught this class for a couple months, one Sunday a month, and man, it just, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. It's kind of draining. I'm not seeing anything happen. It's a struggle. And I believe that part of what the Lord's saying today is, like, don't give up in the middle of that because you know that there's going to be a return on it. Even when you don't see, especially with the time that you give, many times you don't see a return. What Jonathan saw through Drew, that was a gift to be able to see the return on the fruit that he would, or return on the investment that he was giving to that. But if you stay in this example till day 21, wow, who knows what can change because of the faithfulness of the time as well as the presence. And we have to remember more than anything else that we're in a fight, that we're in a mission together. God has called us. He has called you, if you're making Family Fellowship your church home, He's called you to be part of this segment of the army that God has, this part of the family. And He says, I have a specific mission for Family Fellowship, and for whatever reason, these are the soldiers that we have. These are the brothers and sisters that we have fighting together. And I know sometimes, today, my passion is kids and youth ministry, that sometimes it may not be as glorious looking. You're kind of in the back, and sometimes you think, does anybody even know that I'm here? I mean, I had Sundays like that when I would serve, be like, I could die back here. I wonder when they'd find me. But I mean, I know that's not true, but maybe not true. But we're in this together. That it's a mission. And I want to end with this video. And it's a guy kind of video. I know there's some ladies that get into Gladiator, but this is really a guy thing to say, you know what? The mission takes strong men and women that are willing to fight together for the future of especially our younger generation. So check this out.
Strength and honor.
Strength and honor.
At my signal, unleash hell.
Load the catapults. Infantry form up for advance. Archers ready. Archers! Knock! Knock!
Atlas! 3 weeks from now, I will be harvesting my crops. Imagine where you will be, and it will be so. Hold the line! Stay with me! If you find yourself alone, riding in green fields with the sun on your face, do not be troubled, for you are in Elysium, and you're already dead! Brothers, what we do in life echoes in eternity.
Right. What we do in life echoes in eternity. Would you bow your heads, close your eyes with me? That's a very significant statement that we don't think about very often. That the daily choices that you're making with your time, your treasure, and your talent is going to echo into eternity. And it can echo in a good way and bring fruit that you're going to see maybe not until we're in eternity, or it can echo in a bad way that's going to bring strife and challenge for you as you go through life. But I feel that the word today really is all about that time and attention investment that you're making. Please don't give up. We need you. Whatever it is that you're bringing to the table, we need you with that, because there's a world it's rough, and we know that. And where else are our kids, our young people, our new believers going to know and be trained if we're not taking that step to do that? So Lord, I thank you so much for your love for us. Lord, I thank you that you trust us. You trust us to partner with you on this mission of bringing your love to this world. And it can be so hard at times, and we can get so caught up in our own lives because our own lives take a lot of energy and a lot of attention. But Lord, I pray today that you would give us a strategy, maybe show us where we've been off a little bit, that you would convict us in those areas where maybe our investments aren't really bringing the best return. And Lord, for some of us, you're saying you're doing a great job. May this just be a word of encouragement for us today. Lord, we love you. We love everything about you, and that we get to do life with you. And I thank you for that. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen.